think we should be good to go.
And great, we have no one on Zoom today. Excellent.
I don't see anyone on Zoom.
Great, well, let's call the meeting to order at noon. And I would first like to welcome back to his first tree board meeting. We're so glad to have you.
I'm excited to be
Yep.
here.
Yeah, and yeah, offer suggestions or any ideas you have at any time, and then you're gonna just be a great liaison to schools.
Right.
Good. Let's see, Victor, would you like to do roll call
Kathy Macho,
here?
Henry Crizel,
Here.
Carol Winter,
Here.
and Daniel Mulder.
Here, we have a quorum.
We do.
Okay, let's see, I think Teresa had an update to the minutes. Did you catch that, Victor?
Yeah, let me see, she said we missed the word R
Yeah,
under public comment. Yeah, so under 5, it should be Meg Sprouse said that there are a couple of sick dead trees. So I'll just add that word R.
any other comments or corrections?
Nope.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I'll second.
Okay, minutes are approved.
Well, we have to make sure we have a roll call, vote. We gotta call the motion to a vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Just,
motion passes.
yeah,
Sorry,
a
yeah,
motion and a second and then a vote.
yep.
If
Okay.
anyone challenges it.
Let's see, then moving on to board communications, do you have anything, Victor?
No, the only thing I probably have since the last time we met was that council has approved the Bluff Stability Committee met, and they provided best practice guidelines for people that own property on the bluff, and that was approved at council probably in October, early October, so. Hopefully that will resolve some issues between neighbors that live on the bluff and Third Street. I actually got one call from a lady about it yesterday who lives on the bluff, wanted to see the best practice guidelines to talk to her neighbor about it, so. So, seems like it's having some effect, yeah, so.
And are we publicizing it to the community or?
Yeah, we'll do it slow. I mean, it's mainly for those who own property on the bluff, so a general push to the whole community doesn't really make sense as much as targeting the people who own property on the bluff, so we're getting the word out to them, so.
Very good, let's see, I guess we'll have no public comment today. And under old business, Trace and I were both going to suggest we do a quick Arbor Day recap, so could we add that to the agenda, and do we need to vote, Victor?
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
Have them.
All right, so all those in favor of adding Arbor Day recap to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. So
Good. Great. Well, comments, what did everybody think?
Arbor Fest?
Yeah,
I'll say, I think I can go through my positives. I think, it was a pretty good location. I like Eric had a great speech. I think we had a good amount of volunteers show up. I think the tree planting was really good.
Mhm.
I think potentially we could do the tree planting earlier. Maybe maybe not at the end when people leave.
yes,
That's just one suggestion. If you do the tree planting early, you get more than just a regulars involved with tree planting. The birds weren't, we could always use them for later, but we got, if we're gonna do any kind of fundraising stuff, we gotta do better planning of how to sell that stuff. And I think, of course, the food and everything was good. Probably should try to, you can't hear me, so.
Probably try to find a way to market it better.
Yeah, so we should work on marketing.
Yeah.
But I think we had a pretty good turnout. Compared to the year before. The one year we had at Kiwanis, we had a lot of people, and the second time we didn't have many. So it's been a hit or miss.
that's something I want to talk about. Kathy, did you have any comments first?
Yeah, I mean, some of my comments were the same. I felt like we weren't, it wasn't publicized well enough ahead of time. and maybe I missed, maybe it was me because I was out of town part of it, but I felt like I got back into town the day before and I'm getting emails announcing it, and it's like, that seemed a little bit late, so I'm not sure, maybe I missed something on that. And I love the events that were there, but I would have loved to see more people. I guess that was the hard part, I mean, and it's like, we had too many things going on at the same. I never did get to do the disc golf demonstration that I wanted to do because we were tied up with helping.
Volunteering, yeah.
Yeah, so I, but I loved it. I mean, I thought it was a great location.
I thought it was the best lineup we've had. We do Arbor Day, Henry, once a year, to celebrate trees in Harbor Springs and also to maintain our Tree City USA designation. We've had it at various parks. This year was Harborview, which is up next to the pickleball courts. I thought it was a great lineup of stuff this year. I was really happy with that. I thought the bingo was wildly popular.
It's like the Skittles.
The Skittles, yep, that part was good. Eric was fantastic. I don't know if we just tap him every year. I don't know how you can get much better than that. I thought 2 trees was good to plant. Food was good. I think the fundraising idea was fun with trying to go with a theme, about birds this year. I don't really know if Arbor Day is a place to do fundraising, or at least not that way. Not that we can't, we gotta get rid of those birds sometime. But I think turnout again was disappointing. And so then the question is, would any amount of marketing improve that? I felt like we did a pretty good job. It was on social media, it went out in the school newsletter. I think Saturday is tough because the kids have a lot of like soccer games and that kind of thing. So I don't know what other day we'd do it where we'd get a better turnout.
Yeah, that's a good question. And also, we do have mics here. So you can more than welcome to turn it on. But sometimes Kathy and others can't hear me speak if we have softer voices. You don't have to speak into the mic, but as long as you turn it on, it'll be easier for hair. All right, okay, so as far as days, I think there's multiple things we have to look at. It's not just about, it's about what else is going on in the town that day. So we're looking at students as one example, and obviously, Henry, you might be able to speak to this. High school students are they're kind of involved with a lot of different activities. And so we're looking at not just what day of the week, but also what month and what other activities are going on in town. I mean, we are limited. If we're gonna do tree plantings, there's really, advisable to do it in the fall or the spring. A summer Arbor Fest might not be the best, but it could be done depending on the trees and the location. But, we're kind of limited when we can do this. Arbor Day itself is what, April? So we've never been able to do it on Arbor Day. It's just too cold.
Could be snowing, yeah.
Yeah, it could be snowing. That could be changing now, but it could be snowing. So I think that's what we need to look at is, not just the day and time, but also, month. Maybe we change it up every year. Maybe but I think people look for consistency as well. That people are used to something being on a day, like, whether it's or a certain weekend, people get used to that. So well, Carol has it done.
So when was the first Kiwanis Arbor Day?
The first one actually was here. I think, was that in April?
Yeah, so
Kiwanis where you said was a good turnout.
Good turnout. That was, I think we
April?
tried to do it in spring
That was
up
in
until
May.
this year.
that would have been in May. It was near, it would have been around Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, we had 2 years.
And that was the first time we invited Eric to the first, and then the second Kiwanis Park one, we didn't invite Eric. There was much fewer people, but we did have a tree climbing demonstration from Ben.
I'm thinking that maybe with the Arbor Fest, social media or whatever, we may want to highlight that there are games for the kids because, the kids might say, I don't want to go to Arbor Day. They don't know what trees are, that doesn't appeal to them, but perhaps if we said there's games for the kids, including, then pick some. I did like the location.
Flyers, but yeah.
Because I think with the location too, that's not a park people are very familiar with. So if that drives more people to that park, I think that's a good thing too.
Henry, what would get something, you and your cohorts to go to an Arbor Fest, which I know doesn't sound exciting.
Not that.
What kind of events and activities though would you, food, what would get you there to go?
I think food was definitely one. I think, have you ever, I'm sure you could almost partner with some of like the organizations or not, or like clubs, cause like there's like Key Club, just through Kiwanis. I don't know if you've ever done. You
We
could
actually had
almost,
high school volunteers. I don't know if it was Key Club or Honor Society.
yeah, cause I think that's a good way to get people involved. Cause people like to help their community and a lot of high schoolers do that, so I think. Cause like I joined Key Club this year and they are a big. There's like volunteer hours and stuff you can get, and so I think, and there's events that we do like road cleanup, so I think. If you got like some of those clubs involved, that more people would show up to Arbor Fest or. So,
Do you think it matters what time of year? I'm thinking, leaning towards spring myself, but I don't know.
I mean, there's just a lot going on, like all the time. I mean, even the fall and the spring, I feel like are the busiest. Cause like when was Arbor Fest this September?
Mid-September.
Okay, cause that's like, our homecoming was towards the end of September. This year, it's how it like fell, and so I feel like people were very busy, like leading up to that. And so it just depends though, but I think either spring or summer or fall.
So going off of that, Henry, those are good points, but Kathy, I think one thing we should consider is that the problem, well, potential obstacle with doing it in September, mid-September. Is that the kids are just starting school, so like it's a weekend, so there's not enough, if you did it in spring and you had a month to advertise and get the student societies involved, but if it starts, we have Arbor Day Fest September 15th, kids start school September 6th. We don't have, it's just a whole new group, and so I think doing it in the spring allows us to coordinate and plan throughout the year with, and we can start planning in the winter with.
I think May is a good month.
Yeah.
I do too. I have a hard question to ask. Do we want to scale back and do something less than like a whole big event that takes a lot of time and planning, like Bill was suggesting? What if you just did a celebration at Farmers Market and we had like, asked her to give us like space for 2 booths, and you could have some games, you could still give away seedlings, and it's not quite as elaborate and flashy, but if we're only gonna get like city employee kids to come to it, then maybe it's kind of a practical thought.
I prefer it at a park.
Sorry.
I prefer it at a park to be tied in with a tree planting.
Yep.
Or something, I think that would be.
Yep.
But scaling it down might make sense and focus on a few different things. I mean, like this one, I think it was great to have the library director read. I think the kids that were there enjoyed it, but there was like 5 kids that went there. So like, how do we
And they were all
advertise?
Rachel's kids, and yeah.
Well, then there was 3 others.
Oh, my neighbor's
Kim
kids,
Morris,
yeah.
Kim Morris is my kid.
Your kid.
But anyway, but I think something like that's a good idea. If you get the amount of people there.
The thing about if doing it in the spring, the farmer's market doesn't start till what, Memorial Day?
It's usually mid-late May, yeah.
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 Very late May, so I mean, if you're gonna try, I don't know, and I don't know if it opens on that Wednesday, I'm just saying,
Well, that's a good point. We thought that, having this associated with the farmer's market could get people from the farmer's market to come to our event, but maybe people aren't just gonna go to farm, maybe it's a competing event for people as opposed to, as opposed to complimentary.
So we had talked about, and this was something Teresa wanted to talk about, is doing it at Zorin Park.
at where,
So, at Zorin Park, so we would be right there at Farmers.
True.
Market.
do we need to plant trees there?
You don't really need trees there, but yeah.
Good. But yeah, that might be smarter as far as that way, because people don't have to get in their car and drive to another park,
Yeah,
especially the visitors.
that would make it less of a competition, I think. maybe, yeah.
And then
If
people
that's-
who hadn't even heard of it would see a sign for it or a booth for it and walk over. I think that's a great idea.
I think,
So
yeah,
maybe we try that for next year in Thorn Park, and then maybe we try May again. I think we had a good start on some fun activities and things. Yeah, and see what next year brings.
I agree with that. I think Soren
Yeah.
Park, because part of this could just be, are we getting the right spot at the right time? This is not one of those events, if you want to start attracting people to an event, you have to get them to know about it first and maybe having it right in just random people's faces, like, oh, what's this? So then maybe after a few years, you can then switch once you have a loyal following. But I think
Yeah, I
Soren Park
guess-
has enough space, you can do a disc golf demonstration, you can even have Ben back to do a tree climbing, pruning presentation, you can have Eric do a speech. People can come and go easily without having to get in the car, they can go back to farmer's market, they could go get ice cream, whatever they wanna do. Without, so I like it.
Let's try it, but this will be our 5th one coming up. And just think at some point, this is where I was getting at with the surveys. Let's find out, are people interested in trees? Do they care about trees? Do they care about Arbor Day? Do they care for Tree City? And like, are we just kind of barking up the wrong tree over and over again? So anyways, let's try it next year and then we can see where
We
we
need
go.
to start as early as January though to be.
Yeah, I
planning
think
for
we
it.
got a late start last year, so.
Well, yeah, I think part of it was we didn't, with the whole being in September, it was a little different. So I think we should probably, with the new board, it might be the same exact people, but start in January. I think we should have our details hammered out in March. And so that way we know who to invite.
Publicity.
Yeah, so April and May can be publicity. I mean, then we can work on the details of it, but the main thing should be decided by March. Location we got, time,
Mhm.
3 events that are big thing, food.
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe we can work more on publicity. And that way it can be tied in with the farmer's market, so then we can pick a Saturday that the farmer's market is going on. That's when it makes
Into
sense.
Rachel to reserve the park so that suddenly there isn't a wedding at that time. or something, so
Yes.
I'll mention it.
When in May do they usually, have you done it in the past, like,
Around Memorial Day, which has been, I think, probably an issue as well, because you have a lot of people that leaving
Yeah,
For
maybe the
little
weekend before.
weekend trips, yeah, but we wanted to tie it in with the farmer's market, I think, that was our goal.
Well, we've been at farmer's market every year, so, and it's always, well, until this year's been.
Are there a lot of school activities like that? That's what I'm,
well, the thing about May is that that's when prom is, usually like early May. I think we might be doing it like, I'm helping plan it right now, but it's gonna be like the first Saturday in May, I think.
All right, well, we wouldn't do it that early, so.
Oh, okay,
It'd be
cause that,
Looks like
people are very busy for that. You can, because I definitely think you get a lot of high school students to get involved in this. If it's like brought up,
Okay,
I think.
yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
just-
and previous years, we had, at the Kiwanis Park, we had elementary school students do drawings and middle school students, and they submitted their drawings to,
Mhm.
we hung them up at Kiwanis Park building. And that got a lot of activity, I mean, that's how
It
you
is a
got them
great
involved,
place to do it.
yeah.
that was this year's. This was the 25th last year.
Carol just looked up farmers market.
So it
I
looked
think
like-
the first one might be the 24th. Should we
Yeah,
put that as a tentative
It
date?
looks like that's the first one.
So
for
it's
next
Memorial
year.
Day Saturday,
This is before
before, yeah,
the weekend.
That would be early in. People wouldn't be having their graduation parties that early.
no, that'd be June.
That's more like,
Yeah,
okay.
not usually. That would,
Good question.
Yeah, I think if we do it in June, we push out, like, kids are checking out of school.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's-
The seniors' last day is in May. It's like, I don't remember what the date is, but it might be just before Memorial
Yeah.
Day, I don't know, but
Yeah, seniors and then in June, kids are ready to be on break. So let's try May again. I like the idea.
And it should be easier to get seedling and to,
Yes, that was another problem we ran into.
Yeah. Okay, is that good then for everybody right now, and then January, we'll pick it up again? Okay, let's move on to new business, public property tree management. And do you want to give some background on that, Victor?
Right, so let me see if I can bring it out the screen. But remember this is what we went to council for, was that the tree board recommended that the city takes over the management of our city land for vegetation management purposes. And we were primarily focused on the bluff, but we're also talking about other city-owned land too. You know, we have two different kinds. We have land that's where people come to the city always to request to trim on the bluff. And then we have land that's maybe not bluff land, but they could use landscaping or vegetation. And of course, the tree board's focus is more on the vegetation management aspect. So yeah, so the theories were that the city should manage its own property. The management should benefit the public as a whole. And so not any particular individual or property owner. That aligns with our master plan, that this is something that our master plan calls for, is improving the character of the town by landscaping and vegetation, and managing vegetation. And then also, we talked about how our current vegetation management policy is cumbersome. Right now, as it exists, a private property owner comes to the city, they make a request to do trimming on public property on the bluff or any other part of land. They have to come up with a plan. Our arborist has to create a plan or a report based on their request.
Yeah, if it requires a survey.
It could require a survey depending on, complications of the land. We have some parcels of land that just are delineated. So then there's a public comment period. If anyone in the public disagrees with it, then it goes to the city council for a political decision on whether or not it goes forward. And it's very cumbersome and tiresome. And then it's also not clear, is the vegetation management that's happening benefiting the city? And it's usually not, it's usually just to benefit the individual. So the idea is that we would start creating our own plans, vegetation management plans, where the city would have on a regular basis, go there and remove a few trees or trim a few trees, plant trees if necessary, so that we're in control of our land and it's benefiting any view improvements or any improvements to the land benefiting the public as well. So that's where we're at right now. Council agreed to that we should make our own plan. And I think the tree board's role here is not to get into technicalities, but I think that's why we have the arborist and staff here. Is, we already have actually been dealing from, it's over a decade old, but has a general plan in place for, what, and with the bluff stability best practice guidelines, we kind of have a plan in place of, what's appropriate to plant, how much is appropriate to remove. That's already in place. I think what right now we need to look at is, where do we want to start? What's our main important areas? Such, is it a certain section of the bluff? Is it a certain I won't say park, but certain city land, coming down the hill here from M119, is there a place where we want to start? And then what will our objective be? Is our objective in that area to improve the view, a public view? Is it an objective to make it easier to walk through? What is our objective? So I think that's what we need as a tree board. And then we can just go to, staff, all right, how much is this going to cost? How realistic is it to get done? And, go to our arborist and say, all right, we want to clear this view here, what trees can we safely remove or trim? So I think, but yeah, let's focus on the tree boards is, all right, what parks, what land, and what do we want to see?
And I would suggest backing up even one step further, and what is our vision for vegetation in Harbor Springs?
Oh, you're Mark, yes. Did you print in?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
in case somebody listens on YouTube.
okay. Yes, turning my head sideways, don't be there. So I think, and I found that over the years, I come to think in PowerPoint, which is kind of weird, but, so I just started this and, you know, the background, even before the policy, it was even more casual with like, you know, backyard handshake, yeah, you can take out these trees things. And then we kind of went too far, like, you know, making it so cumbersome, and now I think this is nice to sort of come back to, the city manages its own property. So I think the first thing that would be really good for the tree board to do is come up with what is our vision for this and what are our goals for this. Is that good?
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Okay, so, and I like how Victor started the whole thing is that he's covered this already, but, what other thoughts do you guys have? And I guess one other thing I'd like to talk about too is, I'm not sure about rolling landscape.
No, it was though, it is something that's called in our master plan, so I don't think the tree board should be the one on the, talking about the landscaping, that's something different. But an element of landscaping kind of overlaps with we want to plant trees, so it should kind of be within the tree board's purview that is there an area where we want to see more trees to benefit the public as a whole? And that would be.
My preference would be to just take it out and make that a second policy thing, so that we just focus on trees.
Okay, but like, are we focusing only on tree trimming and
Nope,
removal?
nope, tree removal, and for all different purposes, as you said, to open up views or, you know, if we want a walking path somewhere, you know, health and safety, I think always is gonna be the first priority, right? We are now talking about, the vegetation management, policy that Victor's gonna be working on, and, I think we're talking about like, what do we want our vision for it to be? So, what is our big vision, ideas?
Well, here you have basically what.
What you
I
put down,
explained,
yeah.
What do you talk about? Well, the city's developing a landscape plan, but that's not the tree board. That's what we just said, right?
Well, I don't know if they aren't.
We're not there
This
yet.
time, But
Oh,
I,
okay.
it says so in, you know, in this first round, and,
Right, okay,
to me, it would be better to take it out and let's just stay focused on,
okay.
trees and vegetation.
So.
I think the
yeah.
city as the whole, that part of it is really important.
For a vision, yes, I think that's the most important part for the vision out of this whole. What would that be? Well, the city can manage its own property is more of a. Not really a vision, but I think the vision really is that any vegetation management benefits the community as a whole.
But maybe there's some categories under, benefits, like health and safety, I think is first, right? So
Yeah.
that's like dead trees, you know, diseased trees. I think another one is aesthetics, which I think views would fall under.
And aesthetics
And that's not views for individual people living in houses. This is, you know, one of the master plan goals is to, you know, emphasize the beautiful views we have today. Any other thoughts on, what benefits could come from management?
I would say. User. Experience.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, like we're talking about walkability or we're talking about, so some sort of user experience.
What about, yeah, along with that, like variety of
Oh,
kinds of plants, I mean,
Good urban
Could
forest
be-
management, yeah.
right, so,
so diversifying our urban canopy.
yes.
I always believe in stewardship, you know, as an educational and bringing up the new generations. So that could be education and outreach.
How would you see that? I don't disagree. How would you see that as, like, how could we implement that goal? Is it just involving the students in schools?
Yeah, maybe that, yeah, so.
Okay, no, that's, I'm just thinking about if we're gonna make it a goal.
Yeah, I know,
that we-
it's just very vague right now, but yeah.
It's what education outreach. means.
Public outreach, I would say public outreach and education.
Is it? Maybe this isn't a vision thing. Pocket forest that we wanna look at eventually. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
a vision thing, or is that something? go
that might be
somewhere
more
else?
specific.
I think, yeah, that's a way to
That's fine.
achieve.
Victor, would you be able to pull up, tree plans goals? Maybe we can pull something from there too. You guys probably read it before every tree meeting, right?
Good idea.
It'd be good if you blew it up a little bit too.
Yeah. There's the purpose of the plan.
Oh, we can this one. Henriette, this is easier.
So this is very similar kind of what we're talking about here is inform and educate the public. And then create opportunities for increasing the tree canopy. All right, so that's the purpose of the plan. Let's look at our tree plan's vision, so make sure that our vision here is aligned.
Yeah,
City of Harbor Springs will sustain a healthy, safe, and appealing public park and street tree population and work to increase overall tree population on both public and private property to enhance the city's environmental and economic benefits that come with a diverse urban forest. So,
I feel good that we've covered all of that in.
And what we just talked about.
Yeah, so I have health and safety, I have aesthetics / use. I have user experience interacting with our forests. Let's see, diversity and health of our urban forest and public outreach and education.
yeah, those all fit well there. Okay, so
Okay,
that's,
so that could get worked into a vision statement and goals. And then. So are we saying it's okay, Victor, if we can like hold on the landscape part of it?
oh, absolutely, I don't think we should.
You guys agree with that?
We shouldn't be doing
There was,
landscape.
it looked like there was kind of a landscape component.
Yeah, and what I had said, there was a landscape component, but that was in the master plan. So I think the landscape plan has two components. One is what we're removing. I mean, landscaping involves removals. And also what we're actively planting. And I think what we're talking about here is managing what's existing. So I think it's an offshoot of a landscape plan in a way.
Yep. And then individual parks, will come up with their own plans, which may involve the tree board. Yeah. What other things would we talk about then? Maybe about like what we feel are priorities.
I was gonna say, are we coming up with priorities or
Yeah, or like,
timelines?
what components would be in the plan?
Well, let's see.
Or,
I guess, what components are in the plan are all gonna depend on location of, right, because somewhere on the bluff might be not the best place to have user experience as far as walking through. We already have the boardwalk, right? So you're not gonna be removing trees so people can.
but it is at Kiwanis. for example.
Right, exactly, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think the elements, some of this, the area, the public property we're looking at are gonna have different combination of these elements that are gonna be important to them. So it might matter more for us about aesthetics and views on one section, and it might be more important for diversifying the urban canopy in another section. So,
So rather than split our priorities into like those types of things, we'd split it into geographic areas.
yeah, and then this vision of these goals would be the overlying theme, as long as we're achieving at least one of these goals or something.
So
Probably
maybe,
more.
so maybe we could talk a minute about plan components. So, health and safety, dead trees, pruning for the health of the tree. Views, walking paths. Adding to the forest. I don't know if I'm just throwing stuff out and this may not all be related.
And we're not just talking trees, we're also talking bushes, shrubs, or,
I think we're just talking trees.
I
and
think
stuff.
for the tree board, we should stick to trees, yeah.
okay, just wanted.
For right now, we can expand our impact.
It seems
Other
like
thoughts,
the plan components kind of overlap exactly what we just talked about under the vision. I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, I think,
Okay,
I really don't think,
Fair
yeah, I
we
think,
don't need that. Okay, so should we talk about priorities then?
Yeah.
And that will be a geographic focus.
yeah,
So do we mainly focus, well, okay, so city-owned land would be streetscapes, right?
yeah, but I think it can include streetscapes, and I think we want to make sure that we already have the street plan. Remember, we already have our neighborhood
Yeah.
street tree plan. So I think we want to keep this maybe a little separate from that, because we already have a plan in place for street tree
Or
plantings.
provide a reference.
Yeah, or we could reference it, yes, but I think we're now talking, I think, more about parcels of land, like actual blocks of land as opposed to rights of way.
But like I did see somewhere about planning, oh, I was so happy to see the statement, replanting strategy for aging and diseased trees. That's been my whole like thing that I talk about with succession, like do we wait till they're all dead before we plant for the next round of trees? So that could be something that is addressed in this as opposed to the street tree plan. So street trees, and then would we just call it forests? And that could be like a forest on the bluff, or it could be like Kiwanis. Or natural areas, we call
Yeah,
them.
it's all natural areas.
Yeah.
More forests are kind of hard to come by.
And
Yeah,
then how about parks?
where does the little park on Pine fall
We're
into
gonna
this?
go
We'll
there
get
really
there.
soon,
Yeah.
yeah. And then how about like other city property like City Hall? What would we call that?
That's usually referred to as like buildings and grounds, so I would
Okay.
call it buildings and grounds.
So streetscape, which will mainly reference natural areas, parks, buildings and grounds. What other types of property does the city own?
I think that's it. I mean, that's really the four big, I think you can categorize everything into those four big categories. Like, for example, we have a well on Pepper Street. I would
Yes.
consider that buildings and grounds. That area is surrounded by a lot of. So, yeah, sorry, I didn't teach you how to use it. Just press the button.
Just leave her little.
Do I even sound
Louder.
Yeah, so this is new, this is a pause, this is new for, mostly for council meetings or well attended. With public, so that the speakers back there, so people in the room can hear. But we can it's also easier to hear from us, so. Anyway, all right, sorry for the interjection. I think those are the four categories.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have fewer categories than.
Yeah, we can always lump something
Yeah.
into.
So then do we want to look at kind of like we did with the street tree plan, like geographic areas, or do we want to?
Well, what I think I need to
Stick with-
do, what I'll need to do for you all is get a map and identify where exactly all these are.
Okay, that would be.
Because there's a lot of city land that's just land that we don't call parks. So I'd identify where this is at, and we would also want to see if there's any property we own outside the city limits that might be beneficial, because although we're a tree board for the city of Harbor Springs, we also are in charge of land outside the city limits, so we can make a recommendation to council on some
What to
land.
do at the airport,
And well, but there's also, for example,
Keith's Run.
that I think I've did some research might be in the city limits. I did some research, but one example is the property on M119 where MDOT just added, we did that 2 years ago, they added a culvert underneath M119.
Comfort, yeah.
Yeah, all that property below that, where they removed a lot of trees and planted, that's ours. It's not within the city limits though, but we own it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so examples of like that, and over there for that project, MDOT planted like, I don't know how many hundreds of seedlings, So,
So as we set priorities, we could be jumping around, like this streetscape is really important, followed by Shea Drain, followed by, you know, City Hall. So we could be jumping around
Well,
in
yeah, I think-
types of properties.
I think what I'm gonna do is when I provide you with the map of list of where all city properties, I think at that point. It behooves I know it's kind of hard when all the leaves are gone, but it behooves the tree board members to maybe take a look at those areas.
Like we did with the street.
With the
tree.
streets, exactly, and then come back and say, all right. Each of you to determine which of those areas you think should be a priority, just, and then make categories, all right, we're gonna work on. These ones, these years, and then we'll create a plan that way, I think that's. So then we have to go through each one saying, all right, City Hall, and there might not be a whole lot here at City Hall, but we should, you know. Have a plan where, you know, we rotate out the disease and dead trees. It could be something simple, but something on the bluff could be much more complex.
Yeah. Yeah, just so we're all looking and evaluating the same types of things. Maybe would we come up with like a little checklist for each place we visit? Like, are the issues user experience? Are the issues? You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a checklist would be a great idea.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah,
Cause I
me
know
too.
before, when we did the street treatment plan, Tony drove me around and I had my notebook and I like took notes, but it'd be nice to have something
So we're all
specific.
looking at the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Teresa. I think that's,
and we could have field trip day or something, or we could just do it on our own, it's easier, maybe, I don't know. It's coming together.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
planning ahead to the next meeting, then a map, city properties. And then I'll bring a checklist, and then maybe I don't know, maybe we need to spread it out over a few meetings like we did with street trees.
Yeah, it'll take a few meetings. It'll be a few meetings. So,
Do you think we need to talk about anything else today? Anything else you guys want to talk about?
did, in any of this, did we make a request to the council as far as a budget for trees during the year or this?
so I think after we get so council already authorized us to get a plan together.
Okay.
So I think the recommendation was that once we get a plan together, we will, staff will bring back timelines and cost estimates to council, and then that's when council will decide.
Okay, but I'm just guessing that that's gonna be after you approve next year's budget.
It will be, yeah, and that's fine. We might not be able to, you know, get to a whole lot next year. I mean, that's.
Okay.
But as long as we get the plan in place, then we know going forward. I think, I just wouldn't be able to go to council right now with any kind of realistic estimate.
I agree, no, I agree, I'm just,
Yeah, and a phasing plan.
Yeah.
Like, once we get our priorities squared away.
I'm just,
That's a good question, but yeah, it's,
when it comes time and somebody wants to buy some trees,
well, we will
there's
will
some
be,
budget, isn't
but we do have plan for street tree plantings. We already have a plan for that, so we'll have a budget, you know, we'll request money for that in the street. And for that, but for this part of actually like trimming and removals, we can wait till next budget cycle. There's no rush at this point.
Okay,
And it might be something that is already could be included, like some of the simpler ones could be already included in regular DPW maintenance. Like if it's only like one park only needs a couple trees trimmed, guys will go out there and can get it done, you know, relative short, or they can include it in part of their schedule.
So we're gonna miss out on money for this budget cycle for 2025, you think, for this?
Probably, yeah, we could always end up going for a budget amendment though,
Okay.
and it's, council could approve it. We could go in May and June and be like, we need $10,000, or we'd like council to give $10,000 to X, Y, and Z. That's not allowed. It's perfectly allowed. If we have the money to do it, council can decide whether or not they want.
I think another strategic thing on this is who are gonna make these calls. I don't know, you know, like tree management, like, is it gonna be like, Ben?
So, the details. If you guys give us the goal, I mean, then I'll work with Ben and Lucas. I mean, that's really a staff, you know, how we do it, you know. Usually we use Ben for a little more, he doesn't actually, for when we do work, doesn't actually go out there and do the actual trimming work. But he gives us his advice on, all right, well, this is, you might not want to trim this tree, or you might want to consider trimming this tree this way because he has that technical expertise, so.
The view thing is so subjective.
But the
That's
view,
where-
yeah, but yeah, the view thing is subjective, and that's where Lucas and Ben will need to work very closely together, because Lucas will have a better understanding of the location. But then Ben will have a better understanding of exactly, you know, how to do it in a way that doesn't harm trees or doesn't negatively impact the forest or the area. So it'll be a team approach.
All right, I'm excited about this. I think this is a really important thing for us this year. Okay, should we move on to the idea of a survey?
Yes.
Again, this kind of came out of my thoughts that, you know, like maybe we do need to emphasize that we're a tree board, we work on trees, trees are important. Do all of you think they're important? And maybe this is also like kind of a little prod to get more involved or, you know, think about it more.
Well, yeah, I guess the question for the board is what kind of information would you want to glean from the public about trees and the tree board?
There's some suggestions.
I think you have some good suggestions here. I like many of these questions. I do really like the question, are you interested in a program to help you get a tree for your property? I think that's important, and the willingness to help fund trees, because it might help us to identify, if somebody does say, yes, they have a willingness, then maybe there would be some way to capture that person's information, so that we can then reach out, because surveys are often anonymous. So I think it would be important, especially for
Maybe
that
there's
question.
could be a box that says, please leave us your contact.
Yeah.
So I think those are good points. I think one thing is I would probably envision doing with this survey is having have you heard of all these different things that we've done or do? Like, have you heard of the Donate a Tree program? Have
Yeah.
you heard of, you know, Arbor Day
point.
Fest? And then they can check what people have heard of, and that way it gives us a better understanding of how well we're actually doing communicating. So.
No, that's a really good idea.
I like that. And then I think this also can be a little sneaky educational too, like, the top reasons why trees are important, please check a box. So maybe if they hadn't been thinking of it before, then there it is right in the list.
Yeah, we could list, actually, we could take goals and visions from our statements from our tree plan and say, you know, what's most important to you? You know, trees as a lot of people don't think of it this way, but trees as an economic development, you know.
Yeah, so
Because-
there's a good slide in the tree plan we did at council about
Or,
that.
you know, trees as helping mitigate climate change or something like, so what did people see? So I think that's a good.
Yeah, if you took that information off of there and then maybe had them pick like what they feel are their top three.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Any thoughts, Henry?
I don't think everything that has been said, I agree with. I think that I don't really know how many people are like even aware of the tree board. I think
Yeah.
that's sort of important, because at least when I've talked to people. So I think just bringing that up about that we're actually bringing up what the tree board does.
So
And
maybe that's a question. Are you aware that Harbor Springs has a tree
Yeah.
board?
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, it's a very good point.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I got another question we might ask is if they're interested in getting information as to how to care for their trees on their properties.
well, that's a really important thing, because we have control over public property, but we know that most of the canopy is on private property.
Yes,
So,
part of the urban canopy.
And I didn't know whether we would want to ask them an open-ended question like public areas that they think might need more trees, you know, and because of what you asked, but. Ask.
Well, that's kind of what we're gonna be working on with the tree management.
Yeah.
Right. And I did like are you interested in a program that helps you get a tree on your property, which is consistent with one of the other ones.
I think that could be a big project for next year.
I think that's a really good one. I found a tree that I think I'm gonna need to come down in the next couple of years, and it's like,
Put me on a list for an elm or, yeah. Yeah, we could investigate grants for something like that. I bet there are some partnerships with landscapers.
What I can also do is, for next meeting, I can prepare a draft survey, bring it to you, then you can review the questions and answers how you. Then we can put it out in January, February of next year. Get some responses.
But if everybody says trees aren't important.
Okay, well, because I know you guys will take it.
Yeah.
And I think that the people that take the time to read the survey care about trees.
Yeah.
People will, people do care about trees. I think they just don't realize, as I think Henry was saying here, that really that the city has much of an involvement in what's going on with trees.
Take them for granted.
That's what I was just.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Trees are there. They're there.
there's a real disconnect between, at least in my experience, between what the city's responsible for and what it isn't. I had someone that got kind of upset with me because of the development on Beach,
Mhm.
you know, where the
Across
dock,
from the pond.
Yeah,
dock over the pond. And it was like, but that wasn't public property. It had nothing to do with the city. Like, oh,
and it's also, we run into this, I know it's unrelated, but you know, the rights of, well, it is related, the rights of way that's MDOT's jurisdiction, the state's jurisdiction versus like, oh, you guys, you know, city allowed X, Y, and Z to happen. It's like, well, that's not our right of way. That's MDOT's right of way. And so, yeah, there is a disconnect between, so as part of this, it could also be a twofold part of our goals, the tree plan to educate and outreach and outreach to people. This is one of those things. I think it'll be interesting more to see if I can come up with some questions about vegetation management per se, like removals and how people feel about.
Timely.
And I really do think about on private property, especially, one question that council and the tree board have previously gone back and forth on has been about whether or not people should be able to clear cut their homes. And, you know, and there's been the planning commission like say, well, we don't want to go regulate that, but then obviously when someone clear cuts all the trees off their property.
Everybody's horrified.
Yes, so maybe let's really see what, you know, there's some opinions out there. Not saying that we should regulate it, but let's really see what the people think.
Yeah, because some
Yeah,
cities
should
do
the
have.
city have,
Yeah.
should the city have
guidelines
any
that you take
say? on
These trees out and place them with. There are a lot of cities that have those.
I would say we
regulations on
should
it.
try and keep it kind of a compact survey.
Oh, yeah. I think 10 questions maybe is about right. Add a few demographic questions, but 10 actual questions.
I'd love to take surveys. I don't know at all, but
well, but the length is important.
Yeah, I've noticed that from the surveys that we've done at the city, 10 minutes, usually past 10 minutes, survey's gonna take past 10 minutes. As it's not gonna happen, but
and if you have to type 2 minutes.
yeah, usually one-liners, they can type like, you know, if it's like 20 characters, but most people just like to click on check boxes and circles.
I think the new way you have to rank things is kind of difficult for some people.
Yeah.
Right, that's why I suggested like pick your top 3 things that are most important to you,
Yeah.
because ranking
Mhm.
takes.
Yeah, I saw that one economic development strategy survey.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, cool, yeah.
I think it's a good start on this too. Yeah. And with that in mind, I have a suggested topic for the next article, and maybe that is the kickoff of the survey with a QR code and what do you guys think?
Yeah. Love it,
Write
the
it?
QR code. I might let somebody else read it.
Okay.
I'm just so busy right
Does
now.
anybody want to write it? Would somebody like to write it?
Not this
You guys need to like buy me donuts.
The last,
Yeah, you did.
Can I bribe you with?
Almost everything. Okay, good discussion. And Victor, do we have a director's report or report or no?
No, it's boring. Yeah, we don't need to do this.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, is there anything else anybody at the table would like to discuss?
Did you guys talk about our?
yes, and we did agree that my suggestion of, Janice said you guys suggested using Zorn Park.
Okay.
What a farm, I think that's, we're gonna be doing it, back in around Memorial Day weekend or late May.
Okay.
Anything on your mind, Henry?
No.
It doesn't seem like it's gonna be a really fun assignment.
Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad
Yes,
you're here.
we are.
We don't usually get big crowds in the audience, but we do a lot of important stuff. So.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 12:56.
All right.
Thank you.
Turn off the microphone.